As seen from the other video, all the evidence that I have provided in my videos where I educate you and the additional evidence that I haven't even yet to got to correlates and backs up the accuracy of all the other evidence, as well as it shows the direction that the evidence actually points to. So if this was assumptions, then that data would not correlate so accurately with each other. But it does. Why? Because it is not assumptions, it's highly accurate scientific mathematical measurements taken from observable evidence and repeatable tests. Anyways, you go on in your video response to mine presenting false arguments, making counter arguments to things that I never claimed or said, such as this.
Right above the northwesternmost Hawaiian Islands is an ocean current that runs deep along the ocean bottom. It curls around the northernmost Hawaiian Islands and comes towards the surface of the ocean and it goes back around. There's your deep water ocean current right there, Sporty. Because you don't research nothing. You find something at talkidiots.com that seems to support what you believe and you go with it. You do not research well.
Now, did I ever claim there was not deep underwater sea currents? No, I did not. So why are you making a counter-argument saying there's my deep underwater sea current as if some reason I think there is not? Do you think if you make up a counter-argument to something that I never claimed or implied that somehow it would make you look smarter? Do you think because you cannot actually address my arguments that you need to falsely make me look like I have taken a position that I do not and attack the incorrect position? Is that how your tactics work? If you cannot actually address my points, you make it look like I made different points and attack those points that are not actually representative of the position that I take. The closest thing that even remotely talks about deep water sea currents is when I said something along the lines that under your argument that you presented, you would need the water currents to be about 15,000 feet and stretch down to the sea floor. Here's a clip of what I actually said. He would have to show the water currents start from sea level and go down to 15,000 feet and always are that way. Now, does that sound like I'm claiming that there are no deep water currents or that I need in any way to be told that there are? No, it does not. In the end, your ocean current explanation for why the islands get visibly older due to erosion going from north to west is hugely flawed for the reasons that I've already pointed out. And you're going to need to actually address the points that I made and not just ignore them or try and circumvent the points I made by manipulating the points and making them out to say something that they don't actually say. Anyways, if what you said is true, the islands should not become more and more eroded going from the northwest because, well, the islands should be randomly, some more eroded here, some more eroded there, not in the perfect way that seems to be set up to fit the geological model that real scientists use. Now, yes, ocean currents do aid in the erosion of islands, but again, what we see is not what you claim. But if you want to prove it, you need to show us that the oceans affect the northwest islands the most and has less effect as we go east. You'll also need to show the erosion rates are equal to that of the effect that we would expect from the creation model, each seamount all the way down to the northwest and southeast to the islands. You'll also need to explain why, if the islands were made at roughly the same time in the creation model, why the erosion rates are vastly different and line up perfectly with what real scientists' models predict, and not the creationist model. Can you or can you not do that? You make other claims in your video that are just laughable, like this claim.
When we observe mutations to the homeobox genes of organisms which cause deformities, the deformity is weeded out by one of up to 3 layers of genetic error correction in the cell of every organism except perhaps certain single-cell organisms, which repairs that gene, typically by replacing it with a backup gene stored in the DNA of that creature. And the deformity disappears. Morphological features which become deformed are not passed on permanently in any species.
Sadly, you have no clue what you're talking about. Now yes, DNA does have ways to protect itself. However, your understanding of DNA and how it does that is just deplorable, as it has led you to make the claim that you have made without actually understanding what in the world you're talking about. Now, at first I thought I would be bringing up snake genetics, seeing that I have been studying this lately due to me wanting to actually be a snake breeder. And there are examples I could bring up. However, a better example I thought was humans. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever seen the movie Unbreakable? I thought it was a pretty interesting movie. Not my cup of tea, but it was pretty interesting. It involved 2 men. One who had bones that were so strong you could probably call him a superhuman. or like Superman or something. The other was a man who had bones that were so brittle they could break like glass. Both of them were the result of genetic mutations. Well, at least the man with the brittle bones was. They never exactly got around why the bones of the superhuman on there had really strong bones there, but we can assume it's probably the same thing. Now, the movie was fantasy. Or was it? Well, the movie was fantasy. However, the unbreakable bones that we find in the movie are not fantasy. Scientists have actually discovered a family with bones that rival that of the character in the movie Unbreakable. Now, you're asking, how is this possible? Well, they have a genetic mutation of the LDL receptor-related protein number 5. This mutation has a few effects. For one, they have physiological or morphological changes, as you would call them, such as their chin is wider and thicker, making them look a little bit different physically, at least different than the average human. However, here's the kicker. It's not just that their bones are thicker, it's that they are more dense, making them put the character, again, in the movie Unbreakable, look like he's very fragile. Now, according to the paper published in the New England Journal of Medicine, this mutation gets passed on successfully with each new generation. Thus, the population of the family with this genetic mutation will grow each new generation. If your understanding of genetics was true, then this shouldn't be happening. And of course, I will post a link to my source over to the right. Anyways, you go on in your video and try and use Surtses and other Hawaiian Islands again for evidence while trying to say that you're making an inference instead of an assumption. However, you're wrong. You're not making an inference or making an assumption. You're producing a logical fallacy in place of both. The only valid inference you can actually make using the information from the video of Surtses is to make an inference that, well, if this island formed quickly, so can other islands. You cannot actually sit there and say, well, if this island formed quickly, every other island did. You don't even know how to properly make an inference. Anyways, if you were to make an inference, you would still need to actually provide a valid reason for that inference, and especially on the Hawaiian Islands. And you don't even have enough reason to make such an assumption, especially seeing that the evidence itself points to an old Hawaiian island and not a young one. However, let's just ignore all the evidence. Let's pretend we have no GPS technology, no ability to tell the magnetic rocks or nothing like that. And let's just enter the world of hypotheticals and make the assumption there is no evidence. Now, you'll still need to provide evidence for the Hawaiian Islands being young. Why? Because we can actually see land and islands forming at a very, very slow pace, layering down after layer of new material. If this is happening slowly, then one can conclude that if it's happening slowly, that eventually islands will rise out of the water. It's not very hard to make that. That's an inference. So you're left in a position needing to actually provide evidence that the Hawaiian Islands were made quickly in order to make the claim that it did happen the way you claim it does. So we are left believing the observable evidence that leads us to the Hawaiian Islands being formed very slowly over a very long period of time. So again, back up your claim with evidence or your claim will be dismissed. Alright, NephilimFree. Now, on your next video series you really need to provide this evidence you say there is. Otherwise, nobody's going to believe you, alright? Next, you're going to need to provide a source for this evidence, because an unsourced evidence is dismissed for the simple fact there's no way to verify it. So if you get something from a website or a book, you need to actually provide it in those little link area or info area that you have to your right. Also, you need to stop lying. I mean, come on. You're a Christian. You should know better, right? So, come on. Just do this stuff. It's not hard, and I'm awaiting your next video series.